Yo, what's up, guys? Nico. Hey, I want to talk about another name for active addiction. It's called perpetual pleasure chasing. Take a moment and just think about what those three words mean together. Perpetual means ongoing. Pleasure, well, that one's pretty easy to define. It's subjective, but it is pretty easy to find. And chasing, you're always going after it. So always seeking some sort of pleasure or gratification. That's what active addiction is. There's a lot of people out there that are perpetually seeking some sort of pleasure, and there's different ways that people actively seek it. For individuals like myself, I sought pleasure in substances. I sought pleasure in having my mind altered by some sort of substance. It's not a very healthy way to live. Just call it what it is. But there's more of a stigma to the substances that I chose than there is to individuals who are perpetual pleasure chasers of sex, of money, of entertainment. There's a lot of different things that bring us pleasure, and pleasure isn't the bad thing. But continually seeking it where it becomes unmanageable in your life, that's where it becomes a problem. So I wanted to talk about that because I feel that there is plenty of ways that people go ahead and continue to seek pleasure, and they just don't recognize that it's impeding on their life. I got to give it up, man. I was a little bitch when I was seeking perpetual pleasure all the time, over and over and over again. Every couple hours I needed to get high. Every day it was all about just getting high, getting drunk. When I didn't like the way that I felt, or I wanted to alter the way that I felt, I was going for a sack, I was going for a bottle, I was going for some sort of pleasure that I saw at that moment. And then for me, I would repeat it over and over and over again. Well, here's the problem with that. There's actually two that I wanted to talk about. The first problem is that when you do go ahead and use a substance, and I'm going to speak on substances because that's where I have the lived experience at, it releases a chemical in our brains. Chemical is called dopamine, and that dopamine is what really makes us feel good. At the end of the day, we're using these substances to create that feeling where that release happens in our brains. So two things go ahead and occur. One of the first things that occur is that our body becomes accustomed to a certain amount of that substance, where dopamine is no longer released until that amount is in excess. So an example for me in my lifestyle, I was using probably about a gram and a half in a day, and that was to stay well. Again, staying well means that I'm not feeling the physical effects of withdrawals. In order for me to get high, I had to up that up, right? So I'd have to be like 2 grams, 2.5 grams of shooting up dope before I felt the dopamine release in my head and my body start to shut down and I would nod off. Because ideally, my pleasure was in nodding off and escaping this world, escaping the situations that I had to go ahead and deal with. So I had to continually increase my level of use until I got that amount that would release the dopamine in my head, and then I'd go ahead and nod off. And then I would have to repeatedly increase it. So it never stops. I believe I've said it before, but there's a scientific fact that the first time that you get high off of a substance, you're going to get the highest that you will ever get. And the rest of the time is just chasing that same feeling over and over again. So again, the perpetual pleasure chasing effect is that you have to increase the amount of the substance that you're using. The second thing that happens, or that I should say can happen, is that you have to repeat it over and over and over again. And that's where life can become unmanageable for some people. Guys, I've lived that life, both where I've had to increase my usage to get that high that I was seeking, that pleasure that I was seeking, to fulfill whatever that little bitch inside of me wanted to go ahead and fulfill, because that's what it was. I was trying to run away from things. I was trying to hide from my problems. I'm sorry, but that's a bitch. That's something that you can't really stand on. And I'll call it what it is. Again, I apologize if I offend you, but this is my outlook on it. And sometimes I feel that people need to hear it in a raw form in order to get it through a thick head, just kind of like the one that I have. The second portion of that, guys, is that you have to repeat it over and over and over again. There was a point in my life where I would go see my dealer 3 times in a day. I didn't think about this logic. I didn't take a moment, and I'm not endorsing it whatsoever, but I didn't take a moment to figure out, all right, let me just get all my money together, go see the dealer once, and then go back and get high. Again, I'm not endorsing it, but I'm just saying, look at the logic. The logic behind that isn't there. I get my 20 bucks, go buy a 20 sack, and go find another way to make another 20 bucks, go buy another 20 sack, and repeat it over and over and over again. Either way, this chasing of this one pleasure, whatever it may be, because for me it was heroin, it was a bottle, it was pills, whatever it was, I was having to go ahead and either increase my dosage or increase my usage, I should say, or I would have to repeat it over and over and over again. And guys, from a person that has lived that lifestyle, it's not a way to live. And I don't believe anybody should have to live that. If you are currently living in that type of lifestyle, there's ways to get out of it. There's resources that you can go ahead and use. But one of the first things you need to recognize is that all you're doing is just seeking this one quote unquote pleasure over and over again, or to an excess amount, or it's going to drive you into the dirt. It's going to drive you into a facility. You have the choice right now that you can go ahead and make to stop chasing that immediate pleasure. So stop doing it over and over and over again. Again, guys, I've lived that lifestyle, and it makes me sick to think that I was stuck in that cycle for so long. My heart goes out to individuals that are still stuck in that cycle. But I'm here to tell you right now that you can get through it. You need to make the realization, though, that perpetual pleasure seeking is not a way to live. It's not a way conducive to a productive lifestyle. Again, guys, I said that pleasure is subjective to the person. And what that means is that what I find pleasure in, you may not find pleasure in. And what you find pleasure in, I might not find pleasure in. But the holistic concept is that active addiction is just continuing to seek this one pleasure into a point where you either have to use so much of it that it's not pleasurable anymore, or you're doing it repeatedly and repeatedly so you're not getting pleasure out of it anymore either. Either way, guys, I know that there's certain pleasures that I enjoy now, but when I catch myself eating 6 Reese's in 2 hours, I know that I have something I need to address, because I'm still in a mind state where my brain is actively working towards something. That hasn't changed. What I allow it to go ahead and get pleasure by has changed. Like I said, mine's Reese's right now. Ain't no more shooting up. Ain't no more putting back the bottle. But I also have recognized that when I'm frustrated, when I'm stressed, I still go ahead and overeat or take excess amount of these Reese's or little candy bars, because that's kind of where I find pleasure right now. The bottom line, though, guys, is that perpetual pleasure chasing is not a way to live, and you need to make that choice. No one else can do it for you. You need to go ahead and put a stop to it. Pleasure is great. But do you know what's even better? Understanding that you're in control of it. And for me, that comes with having no halo.